Thank you all for tuning in to the Carolina Business Leaders Podcast, where we share the stories of local business leaders and impact makers who are community focused and deeply rooted in the Carolinas. Today's guest is Guillermo Avila. Is it Avila correct?
Avila.
But
that's
Avila.
good.
All right. CEO and Chief Project Consultant of 365 Digital Technologies, a Greenville-based consultancy specializing in project management, business analytics, technical recruitment, and custom software solutions. So Guillermo, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on.
So you started initially as a developer?
Way back. Yeah. I mean, you're talking back to 93. So that's a long time ago.
What kind of languages were? Is this like COBOL?
Yeah, you're talking old school, nobody even touches that stuff anymore. It's like old school. And I was like, this is not for me, and ended up going from there to like starting like the infrastructure side, so going like network admin. Nice. Over the years, got to CIO, and then decided to transition from there to consulting with some of the partner channel on Microsoft side.
So were you like a computer science major in school? Or
no, man, just like everybody else, you major in something that you never do, right? Mm-hmm. So my roommate would give me a hard time because I was a communications major.
Really?
And he's
How
like,
did you learn all the tech stuff?
It just came easy.
Wow.
I mean, it just was really easy. I should have done that as my major, but instead I was a communications major, and he would goof on me. He's like, oh, so you're going to make a living just like talking to people, and I'm like, all right, take it easy. Yeah. But I started off with the comm major and then just went straight into. Now I did some other things before getting in the tech realm. I had kind of a worldview that I wanted to try to change the world, so I became a social worker in Chicago, and that was horrible. That was really short-lived.
I'm sure the day-to-day was pretty difficult.
It was really bad.
Yeah.
It was really, really hard. Wow. And so from there, just decided, let's make the leap into doing tech.
If you're running a small to mid-sized business, there's simply not enough hours in a day to take care of all of your business needs. From managing health insurance to payroll, procurement, advertising, you're going to need some help to get that initial momentum going. That's why I would partner with Quesco. They take care of all the behind-the-scenes administrative and HR work, letting you focus on what truly matters, which is running your business. That's Questo, Quesco. Visit Quesco.net or call your local Quesco representative, Thomas Owens, at 864-477-0843 to get started today. Yeah. Are you from Chicago?
Yeah, originally.
Okay. So you knew what you were getting into then, I guess, with this.
Well, I thought I did as far as with the social work stuff, but then the tech world just it's way more conducive to what I wanted to do.
Gotcha. Okay. So now you started your own business. I guess it was, you said 6 years ago?
Yeah, we started 6 years in May.
Okay.
So we just celebrated our anniversary. And a lot of that was just my wife pushed me into just saying, I would complain a lot about what I was seeing in some of the consulting firms I was working in. Mm-hmm. And she's like, why don't we just take what you want to do and launch it? We have some savings. And I'm like, I'm scared to death because this is a leap of faith, right? And so 6 years ago, we decided if we can land an account, I'll leave the consulting firm I'm with and we'll start this. So we landed Floor.
That's a big account.
That was a big account.
Yeah, that's sweet.
So we landed at our first one with Floor, and we decided that was going to be what launched the company.
Nice. So you had some customers, I guess, lined up, or Floor, as you would say.
Floor was the first one.
And then you took the leap of, all right, we got this. We have something to work with.
Yeah, but it came at you couldn't start a company almost at the worst time because we got Floor.
And that was right before 2020.
Exactly. Oh. So Floor ends up having financial problems. So they're starting to sell off properties and our project goes on hold. But luckily, we were able to get a really nice account in DC with a bio company up there. Nice. And it saw us through all of the COVID time where we were able to do everything remotely. And so it was just my wife and I just kind of figuring this out as we went along. And then now we're sitting at between employees and contractors, we probably float between 10 to 15 people at a given time. Yeah. So we've got a pretty good sized crew, good number of clients.
Definitely. So how did you find the DC client? That's obviously not really close to here, but perfect timing. Was it a lot of advertising? Was it a lot of just connections you already had?
Connections. Okay, that's been the weird thing with our company. We have done, outside of what we do on LinkedIn with maybe when we do podcasts or if we do a lot of writing of articles, things like that, we have done no advertising.
Really? Okay,
so I mean that's kind of crazy. I mean we've done this whole thing and it's all been word of mouth. That client ended up having it was someone I knew. It was a rescue project where the program was over by probably a couple $1 million. They brought us in to come fix it. And we have been there.
It's a tough initial project.
Oh yeah, yeah. But it's almost what we do. The majority of all our projects are all rescue. So
nice.
We kind of figured out that there's this niche in that it's not something we prefer, but it seems like this is kind of what's happened. Is we initially try to come in at the beginning of projects and say, listen, let us go ahead and manage everything for you guys. We'll run this thing. And typically, what happens is someone makes a decision that they want to do it on their own. And it's almost become same story, different town kind of thing for us, where 9, 10, 11 months later, we get a phone call from the same client that we were talking to before.
Yeah.
And they said, listen, like everything's broken loose. Can you guys come in? But, now we have to restate, like this is no longer an implementation.
Now this is a higher fee.
This is right.
Yeah.
Right. This is different. Our approach is different.
Yeah.
It's very different in tackling how rescue projects work. So that's been like 80% of our business are doing rescues out there. But again, we prefer to do it from the beginning.
Yeah.
But usually what happens is someone makes a financial decision that they can make it on their own. They can do it on their own. And tech projects can get pretty complex.
Yes.
And, that's where things get off the rails when you don't know if the vendor's taking advantage of you. Are they... is it smoke and mirrors? What's happening?
And the foundation's so important. I mean, coming from a tech background, we work with code, we work with a lot of this like back end infrastructure. And if your foundation is poor and you're coming in for a rescue, I mean, that's a mess.
It is
quite a task on your hands.
It is, and especially if the client doesn't have tech savvy people on their team that was doing that deployment, they take everybody at their word. So, I mean, you could appreciate this as a developer, and you and I could have a lot of fun with this.
Yeah.
We get the client gets a statement of work from developers saying this is going to take 200 hours, 300 hours, and then I come in and I'm sitting down with you. I'm like, come on, is it really going to take 200 hours? And you're like, oh yeah. I mean, problems could happen, and you and I start negotiating. Like, really, what are we going to do? And that's the difference. Is like the clients they just take some of the vendors at their word.
Yeah.
And so these things get just huge in terms of how big these projects get and the pricing of it. And then when they get out of control, how do we rein this back in? So that's typically where we start to come in to bring that back in.
I mean, it's a serious issue with people underquoting, thinking they can do things in less amount of time or like less resources.
Oh yeah.
And then it pops out. It's attractive to the people that are paying the money because they can do this for half the price. But
right,
it's a problem. They really can't do it a lot of the time. So it's an issue with that. But I guess going back to you and your role, what does a typical day look like as the CEO of your company?
So the goal is to transition a lot of what I'm doing day to day, hopefully by the end of next year, because right now I'm still pretty much in the weeds, which is hard. When you've been doing projects for a long time, it's hard to just say, I'm going to be a focused CEO, which is,
Get my hands out of the tech
exactly.
Stuff,
So like, if you talk to my wife, she's like looking at next year, like no more of this, right? Because there does come a time when I've got to start just meeting with clients, meeting with guys like yourself, getting in the community and starting to promote the company so I can keep my other consultants busy.
Yes.
Because it's hard to consult and you're trying to get new business and sometimes you're being pulled in 7 different directions. Yeah. So the timetable for me is probably getting out of the project management side by December of next year.
Nice.
Letting my team run those projects, continue to train some of the newer PMs.
Yeah.
But also we've got some new things that we've started here recently that I want to start pushing. So we've started organizational change management as a new service for us.
Okay.
And that's been huge for us because we found it just complements what we're doing in the rescues. Mm-hmm. So we've got someone who can be a champion of the people to work with my group who's like, this is a disaster. How do we get the community back to believe that the project is still viable? So the OCM side has been huge for us.
Yeah. Is that typically like software that you're setting up or installing?
Yeah, typically we're coming in for large ERP implementations.
Okay, nice.
And so a lot of our focus, though we're agnostic, a lot of the things we get pulled into is Dynamics 365.
Okay.
And we're doing like the granddaddy, like F&O, like the major one that competes against Oracle, SAP, like all those guys.
I used to work for N4, which has.
Oh yeah, they can. That's
I
yeah.
with them. They have a big enterprise asset management tool.
Yeah.
So that's cool that you're that's what your company focuses on a lot.
We have a lot of focus on that enterprise level projects, and then what we've seen happen, which was unexpected, is we'll do these rescues. They go live on a project, and then the clients will want to keep us to run some of their enterprise level stuff, and they'll just say, "Listen, we kind of know our strengths. We're able to do like some of the small to mid-sized projects, but how about your group just handle like the really big scale stuff?" And so we've been really fortunate that we still get to stay with some of the clients whose ERP we finished just to do other projects.
Nice. Well, cool. Well, going back to you, one big part of the podcast is being community focused and being, I guess, having your business here in Greenville, not being from here. What drew you to this community?
So when my wife and I got married, we had to make a decision like someday when we're going to have kids, where do we want them to live?
Yeah.
And my wife is from here.
Oh, nice.
So that was easy. It was like, stay in Chicago, where I hate the cold weather, or do we go down south? I mean, that was a no-brainer.
You're probably the third or fourth person I've talked to that's come here from Chicago on the podcast. It's like pretty common.
It's cold, man. I mean, it's funny because we'll have some friends who are like, no, you need to move back. You don't get used to cold weather. At least I can't.
Yeah.
So I've been down here now for 31, 32 years, something like that.
Gotcha.
So it's been a long time.
Yeah. And you were working with, was it Floor before that?
Floor was our first client that we got. But before that, I was with a lot of national companies on the consulting side.
Gotcha. So when you stepped out from your previous roles, I guess you talked about the first contract that you landed, but at what point were you like, hey, we can definitely do this business? Was that the moment when you landed the first contract? Or you're like, hey, we could, the kind of the confidence booster you needed to do it? Yeah,
when we landed Floor, we were like, wow, this is real. Like now we got to figure out how to make this work.
But I guess how much planning went into it before you landed that first contract?
Well, we think a lot of planning went in, but in reality, we were just winging it, because there was no one coming alongside us as mentors. Because, I'm doing the consulting side. My wife is trying to figure out, okay, we've got contracts, we've got HR type thing. Even though it's just the both of us, we've got to figure out, how are we going to get paid? We need an attorney, and there's all this framework that goes into it, right? And so you're kind of leaning, you're leaning on hopefully some people who can kind of help you out, but for the most part, we're just kind of figuring it out as we went along. But then as we got more and more savvy and we're connecting with more people from the community, which is why, like for us, the chamber was a big move. And for my wife doing the Goldman Sachs program was big. Because now we had like mentorship from like really savvy business folks that it was great to hear from them that we were kind of ahead of the curve in terms of what some of this other small businesses were doing.
And then that chamber, that's not the Greenville chamber that you were talking about. Oh, it is? Okay. I thought it was the MBA you talked about, the minority business. Yeah,
it's done through the chamber.
Okay, gotcha. So they're connected.
Yep.
Nice. So they, I guess, supplied a lot of mentorships. They were able to connect with other people and kind of, hear different ideas and whatnot through that.
Yeah, and they connect you with other business folks in the community who've been there and done that. And they give you a lot of coaching. And I was kind of unique in the consulting platform for what I do, because it's niche to be able to do like a project rescue type business. But they connected me with a great mentor, and the people in the program are just incredible in terms of how they're trying to help small businesses succeed.
Nice, cool. Looking back over the past 6 years now that it's been, what would you say has been the most difficult part of starting your own business?
I think. So this is funny, because we would make jokes about this when our MBA class would meet, is there's this perception when you own your own business. This is what people have told, like my wife and I, we always roll our eyes. They're like, oh, it's great. You own your own business. You can take off whatever time you want. And it's like, it doesn't really work that way. It's like, if we take off time, we don't get paid. We have to work and build.
And the central gear keeping the machine going.
Exactly. So it's like this misperception that like, you can take all this time off, you guys can relax, just let the business run. It's like, no, it doesn't really work that way, And I think that's one of the things that we learned as like that's been tough is it requires a ton of time. If you're going to be good at it,
Yeah.
and if you're going to succeed, it's not something that's 8 to 5. I mean, it's just not going to work that way. You're going to get out of it what you put into it.
Yeah.
And so my hours are typically way long. And even my wife will tell you, like, I'm just like a machine in terms of just how I begin my day and how I end my day.
Okay.
But you got to. I mean, if we're trying to make this thing big, I think we need to be really proactive in doing it, which requires a lot of time.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what we learned is just if we're going to make this thing huge, we got to be we got to be full in with this thing, which just requires a lot of time.
What are some of those like daily practices or habits that you've implemented?
I think for sure I'm trying to be way better in just catching up with a lot of the new philosophies, a lot of the new business philosophies that are out there, and trying to just read a lot more about things I can incorporate into the business. That's something that I'm trying hard to do.
Yeah.
It's tough because it's just a time issue.
Yes.
And it's just
I feel like everything's a time issue.
It is. It's what's great is like the more clients we get, it's great, but then it requires more of my time.
Yeah.
Which is part of what I'm trying to get to, where I don't have to do the consulting side. I've got people I can lean on. I trust them to do it. And now it's more advisory that I can supply to my clients.
Would you say that every client that comes in, are you having a chance to meet with them? Like, will they get to meet Guillermo?
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
We usually end up having some long talks because you got to imagine, like, by the time some of the folks come to me, they've already lost a couple $1 million. So
didn't you say it's about 80% that it's rescues
of our businesses?
That is a lot.
Yeah, it is, and it's you're not talking pennies. I mean, these guys are coming in and they're maybe a year past their deployment date. They're $1 million, $2 million in the hole, and now I've got to come in and figure out how do I make this make sense again.
Yeah.
And
do you have to make the numbers make sense, like financially as well?
Well, it depends on the CFO because
Okay.
I had one CFO. I said, "Listen, I'm gonna try to make sure that when I create the new master plan, that it sticks within the budget that you want." And he looked at me and he said, "It doesn't even matter. The budget's blown." And he was honest. He's like, "There is no budget. I need you to tell me what it's going to take for us to get back on track because the number we had, it's been exceeded 3 times."
Oh my goodness.
So he'll look at me and say, "Don't even think budget. I need you to tell me what it's going to cost just to rescue."
And they can decide whether it's worth rescuing or not at that point.
Exactly.
That's the best approach to take, I would imagine.
Exactly.
Because at certain points, you got to scrap it. I mean, if you've wasted so many, and it's going to cost so much more to get back.
And that's a tough part. I did one rescue where we had to replace the vendor, and vendor wasn't happy, but we had to. I mean, it was just
wasn't doing
bad.
Yeah.
So we went in, replaced the vendor, and we almost did a rediscovery to re-implement the solution because there was no way to rescue it. And so I had to go in there and just listen. If we keep going with the same vendor, like this is never going to work.
Yeah, they're not the tool needed.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
There's a culture fit too that people forget when you hire a vendor. Do they fit the kind of culture that we have as a company? And some just are not a good match. This was a horrible match.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of situations we come into are pretty volatile that way.
What would you say that your culture is like at 365, and how do you define the culture as a CEO?
Well, it's kind of funny because my wife and I were just talking about this because it's not something we purposefully set out to do, but almost everyone who works for us are like, we're a family.
Yeah.
But it's like, we didn't really set out to make a family because like, I was like, we already have a family, so it's like, but I think part of that is, we do care for everybody who works for us. And so if anyone has any kind of ailments, if there's a birth, if there's a celebration like that, we all want to do it communally. But we even do something that I didn't think would be odd, but apparently it is pretty odd. Is like we celebrate. We've had this happen, I don't know, 3 times I think, where my clients have said, "I really like your consultant. Can we hire them?" And we're like, it's a huge compliment because that's our consultant. And those few times we talk with our consultant, they're like, I wouldn't mind, but I don't want to upset you. And so we'll negotiate something for our consultant to work for the end user, and we celebrate that. Wow. Because for us, we had someone on our team that was such a rock star that our client wanted them. Yeah. So instead of being upset about it, we we've celebrated, because that's really cool, man. That's someone that we hired and has got such competency, our client, and it didn't go around our back.
Yeah.
You know, they went straight to us, and it has happened a few times, which is, you know, and actually it happened here kind of recently where we were being asked for, like, you know, the client was asking if they could have like some of my people. I'm like, I still have to run a business. Like, I can't give you everybody, you know, so, you know, I appreciate that, but I simply can't give you everybody.
That's difficult to kind of manage right there.
It is kind of a weird conversation.
You don't want your company to shrink.
Right, exactly, because it takes a lot of time for us to train people up to a certain level.
Yes, yeah, you're losing that investment. So you don't ever have easy tasks, I would imagine, when you're at the CEO position.
Yeah.
Challenges.
It's kind of a weird discussion, but it's cool that we did have a few folks that were on our team, and they're in. The way that my wife and I look at it is like, we don't want to keep you from advancing in your career. So if we can be part of that success, then that's awesome. We've had folks who, just like in any other job, they started with us, they moved on, but we're not angry about it. Like, it's really cool to see how, when you go on LinkedIn and you see the positions that it's like, yeah, we kind of bridged that. That's kind of neat that we were a part of that story.
Yeah. So your company, it's pretty unique for a small company, I would imagine, to also sponsor scholarships for different students, or I guess those in the community. Can you tell me about the Julia and Guillermo Avila scholarship?
Yeah, it's named after my folks. My dad passed away a number of years ago, and my mom is retired now, and we thought we would honor them with what they pushed me to, and part of that was the scholarship is really a reflection of my dad coming over from Mexico as a young teenage guy. My mom and he just blue collar, worked really hard, and they really wanted the best for us, and so school was a huge thing for them. So
they were pushing school for y'all.
Really big. So I was the first one to go to college, and you know, I remember when my parents drove on the campus. I went to Grace College in Indiana. It's a beautiful campus, and they drove onto the campus, and my dad was just like, this is a huge lawn. You know, it's like in my dad's mind, he's already thinking like somebody has to mow this thing, right? You know, I'm like, Dad, this is college campus. Yeah. You know, and it's pretty neat just to see like their reaction to me going to college. And so we did this scholarship to honor them. Nice. But like really specifically when we partnered with Hispanic Alliance, I get it. I remember, you know, I would be that first generation from my dad, you know, that is trying to figure things out. There was no one back when I went to school, like some of the programs that are around now, there was no one to tell us about scholarships or how the admission process worked. Like, I figured it out by myself.
Good for you.
You know,
because a lot of kids, they have that same scenario where no one tells them. They just don't, and it's really unfortunate.
Exactly. You know, it's especially like student loans. Okay, you know, it's not signing your life away, and you know, it's like, okay, but that scholarship became important for us because we wanted to focus in on those first generation kids, second generation kids that are coming out of families that have come over from Latin America, and they're just trying to have a better life.
Yes.
And so our scholarship was started. This is the second year that we've done it. Cool. It's really cool when we get to see the pictures of the kids that get that scholarship, and we're hoping that as our company continues to grow, we'll be able to just grow that program and just do more scholarships.
So is it like in the States, or is it community, or is it just kind of like a national, anyone can apply for it kind of thing?
It would be the upstate of South Carolina.
Cool.
Yeah. So Hispanic Alliance does a bang out job. They asked me, like, you know, how much stay do you want? Do you want to interview? I'm like, I trust you guys. Yeah. They have a phenomenal program where these students come in, they provide mentorship, and they do a ton of things to just get them to really focus on what school and their potential career could look like. Yeah. And so I'm like, I want to partner with these guys. So a couple of years ago, we met with them, we started the scholarship, and we let them do the selection. We trust them. Yeah. And it's great just to see these students, like we've got 4 that have gone through now, you know, it's like our scholarships help propel these guys into a college and university, which is really neat.
Yeah. Why do you think that your parents emphasize school so much in education?
I think my mom would have been the most verbal. She would have just been like, I don't want you guys to have it as hard as we have had it. My dad would have just been, I just want you to have it easier. He was a man of very few words. He worked I don't know a time when he ever didn't work 2 jobs. Really? He was always working 2 jobs. Wow. And so he worked his tail off. And I think when he looked at the opportunity I had, he's simply looking back saying, I don't I don't want you to have to do this.
Yeah.
Where my mom would have been more vocal to just say, like, if you can do this and you do it the right way, you know, sky's the limit. And, you know, it's kind of the American dream when everyone comes over here. I mean, this is what, you know, we look at in terms of, you know, when my dad came over from Mexico, it's like that American dream. And you're like, this is all yours, you know, but you got to work hard to it.
Yeah. And it's really cool that as a kid you had that mentorship, because the American dream, I would say, is more available to the kids that have a lot of time ahead of them, that have the option to make right decisions and maybe get an education if that's in their path. So yeah, it's really cool that just the American dream's kind of been realized through you. So I'm sure your parents would be proud of that.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. It's pretty neat. I think
starting your own business now as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's one thing that's crazy when my wife and I were looking back at, like, okay, so we have 6 kids, and
wow.
Like, yeah, it's a lot. It's kind of funny. Every time we say we have 6 kids, like, takes the oxygen right out of the room. Like, oh, but we've got 6 kids.
You're leading a business.
I know, exactly. And, you know, all of them are, I think we've got one who is, the last one is a junior in college, and our number 5 son just graduated from University of South Florida. And
nice.
We've got, for the most part, all the kids probably for the next couple of years are all going to have their undergrads. And we're looking at this like, this is a legacy that between my wife's family and our family, that's huge.
Yeah.
To think, especially for my mom and dad, is like, they just wanted me to go to school. Yeah. But because of what they push, now all of their grandchildren are going to graduate with their undergrad. So it's really neat.
Generational difference, just because they were making the right decisions and because you were making the right decisions as well. So
yeah, it's really pretty huge. It's really huge.
You love to hear stories like that. So.
You know, if they make my life into a story, I'm thinking it would be obvious that someone like a Brad Pitt would play me. You know, I mean, that would make the most sense. He's not Hispanic, but it would make sense that he could probably play me. I think, yeah, you know, because I think it is really neat. I mean, my parents have an incredible story, and we wanted to honor them with that scholarship fund. And the first time I told my mom we were going to do that, I mean, she got really emotional, because it's when you start to think back of all the hardships that you went through to get your kids to a certain point, especially for how hard it was for them to even try to support me through school.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And
all the hours they put in
a ton.
Work, yeah.
There was one, I remember my dad worked, he had a job that he worked from like 8 to 2 in the morning and it was crazy. He was cleaning the facilities of this one manufacturing facility in Chicago, and I can't remember if I was home for a weekend or something like that. My dad said, all right, I'm going to go, and I went with him. And I'm like, let's see if I can get you home sooner tonight. So I just helped him wax the floors and do all that stuff. And, you know, I'm looking at this and I'm like, his part-time job is what he's doing to help support me.
Yeah.
And I mean, to me, it really puts things in perspective that my dad believes so much in it that he's doing this other job. He's not getting a whole lot of sleep, but he doesn't complain to anybody either. You know, so he never held it over my head like, come on,
better do this.
Yeah, you better do this thing. He was always very quiet about it. Just, you know, so that's the kind of stuff when I remember that like this scholarship, when my wife and I talked about putting it together, it meant that we were going to help some students out there get through their first year of school, and that was huge for us.
Yeah, especially for, I mean, the right kids. I mean, it could be generational, set the right trajectory on that.
Absolutely.
So, really cool. Do you think any of your kids will go into tech?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've had a couple who you know, have talked about, and it's great when they plot this stuff around my wife and I. Were like, you know, they're like, hey, someday, like, we could run this business, and, you know, hey, you know, it's like they don't even ask us; they're just already plotting taking over the company someday, right? It's like, all right.
Nice.
But I think it's pretty cool to see that, like, what we built is something that has a great foundation, and it can last. It could be for us a generational thing that we look at as a legacy, you know, and. So I think that's pretty neat. And even for some of the other kids who didn't decide to maybe follow the route of project management or on the OCM side, I mean, they're doing great things. Yeah. Tech is just the kind of work that I do is just really hard. Mm-hmm. You know, you have to have a really thick skin. You
have to have just the passion for it too.
Oh yeah. Because believe me, when you're walking in, and I tell folks who are brand new, like when we just hired a new project manager, and I said, during the interview process, I'm like, this is not one of those things when you think rescue, they're like, oh, I'm so thankful. It's like when you walk in, it's not good. People don't like you, and it's not because we've done anything wrong. It's just that they had to get to a point where we had to be brought in, so people are not happy,
Dealing with a lot of happy people.
Exactly. So we're like very clear with people we hire, like, you got to have a thick skin because
they might take it out on you.
They do. And it takes them a while to realize we're on your side. But when we walk in here into some of these meetings, it's friction and you can feel it.
I mean, never they could be on the hot seat,
Well, and that's the thing. A lot of the C-level folks, especially if you've got someone in a family business that's not even, publicly traded, this is family money now. So you haven't just lost the company $2-3 million. The family has said you've taken $2 or $3 million from us. So now it's a whole different conversation with who's going to pay the price for this thing, and so I've got to talk sense into a lot of these guys of don't react. Let's think through this. It may be a combination of everybody's fault. Those are a lot of situations we find ourselves in.
So with the rise of AI, are you guys using AI at all in your company, or are people asking about it?
They're asking, and we're using.
Nice.
So it's kind of funny because it's like, I think most people think it's kind of clever, like, oh, we could put family pictures in and we can come out looking like The Simpsons. Like, wow, I was like, AI could do a whole lot more than that,
Agreed.
So like one of the things that we've been doing, and actually we've got a client that we started kicking this off with this week, which is, to me, it's like, this shows the power of AI is like, when we do a lot of our implementations, we have to do what we call test cases. So a user sits in front of the computer and it shows them line by line how to do the steps of how to get into an application, how to do something in the GL. And it's just step-by-step instructions. It just takes a lot of time to write those step-by-steps.
Yes.
So what we started doing is feeding in some of the manuals that Microsoft had on the platform into the AI agent that I created.
Nice.
And then what Copilot is doing is saying, oh, well, based on the instructions of what the manuals and everything are saying, we're going to break down the steps for you. I like that. To me, it's like huge savings and huge amount of time that we save. So we're starting to use it a lot on the PM side, especially for scheduling. Being able to track a lot of the projects are going to be handled by AI. So we're starting to use the tools a lot more. And then we have started collaborating with some offshore resources to start writing some applications that we think could be complementary to what we do, and even added into like manufacturing software. So we're starting to see some pretty cool stuff.
No, I think AI is so cool. There's so many different use cases for it. I use it for the podcast for tons of stuff. Whether it's like finding the best clips to post or just like helping with some edits. And so there's just like a ton of different use cases for that. I feel like every company can find some way to help it with their processes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's just finding the right way to do it. And also I've seen, if you're like training like AI, some of those like AI ML tools, that can be like really expensive too. So it's kind of like how much do we want to pay to get some of these things into our workflows. So I guess you probably get a lot of give and take of people asking about that, of like how can we implement AI, or how can we improve our systems as a consultant.
Yeah.
What are some of the common misconceptions people might have when it comes to tech consulting?
Yeah, I think when we're interviewing people, I think, especially in the line of work that we're in, I think when you hear rescues, we're joking around about this a little while ago. I think some people who are interviewing with us think like, this is going to be glorious. Like, this is amazing. Like, you are going to be doing some amazing stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it is never a dull day. We met with one person today that we were chatting about, possibility of joining the company on the OCM side, and we said, like, there is never a dull day. It is different every day. Mm-hmm. And so if you're looking for something that's not mundane and routine, like, that's us.
Nice. Yeah.
And in the tech side, it's always going to be changing. Technology is always changing. People change. The processes change. But again, the difficult part is you're dealing with people.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's the part of the consulting that makes it hard. You're dealing with people's feelings. Emotions are high. And the technology doesn't always cooperate.
As we just saw.
Exactly. So that's part of, I think, is level setting with people, that what we're doing is really people driven, and it's also technology driven, but set your expectations realistically that it is high pressure, and it's definitely not an 8 to 5 gig, you know, and especially if now we're officially going to be doing consulting on a global basis. We have to be sensitive to where the time zones are.
Yeah.
So it definitely, I think when we bring folks in, we level set, man. Like, technology is awesome, it's exciting, you're going to be doing some great things, but it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
And it's going to be very stressful.
Nice. I want to dive into your successes, but then also some of the challenges.
Sure.
So before we get to the challenges, though, is there a cool like success story where you turned something around for someone, maybe down millions, and you were able to get them back on their feet?
Luckily, all of our stories are that way.
Oh, nice.
So I don't know that we've had an implementation or a rescue that we've done that went badly. When
Really?
we go into the rescues, we generally level set and we're able to get them out the door.
Yeah.
Now, it might be a year, but we get there.
Nice.
So we've been very, very fortunate in that we've been able to do all of the projects we've had. The rescues have all worked.
Okay.
So
well,
on that
takes
part,
care of the challenges question.
Yeah. I mean, and not only does it work, but like I said before, they keep us around,
Yeah.
and I think part of that is building a level of trust. I'm not out to gouge you on pricing. I think that because we're a smaller firm, we set our pricing in a way that's not going to handicap anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that what we've done there is just win credibility in how we do our pricing, how we count our hours. We're just making sure that people understand, like, we are not trying to take advantage of you, and we're honest about that.
Nice.
And I think part of that has won us a lot of credibility with our clients.
Was initially setting your pricing when you were first getting started, was that a challenge?
Huge.
Yeah.
My coach would tell me, like, from the chamber program, he's like, they're too low.
Okay.
And I'm like, too low, but like,
But I need to get people.
Yeah, and it's funny because we were just watching the episode of The Office when Michael Scott's sitting down with the bank guy, and he's like, "You're going out of business." He's like, "Your prices are too low," and Michael Scott says, "The prices are what's keeping us in business," and the bank guy says, "No, they're actually putting you out of business."
Yeah.
You got to be confident in your pricing, and it's funny because I didn't think it would be this way, but your prices could be low enough where even a client would look at this going like, this is like really low. Like, you're lower than anyone else.
Because there's like a quality attached
there
to
is.
price. So you would think the more I pay, the better quality I get.
Exactly. So we had to regroup and say what's fair, but what shows the level of quality that we're bringing into the engagements. And so I think we're at a healthy place now. We're in the beginning.
Yeah.
It was like, we just need work, like,
Yes.
you know, but at the same
Capital
time,
the door,
exactly. And at the same time, we're hurting ourselves because we're too low. And so there's a value behind the consulting, the advice, the advisement, all that has a price to it. Don't undercut yourself.
Yeah. I would imagine that takes a while to calibrate. When you're first starting out, getting that initial prices, I don't see that being an easy task.
It wasn't an easy task for me.
Yeah.
Now, it came to my wife a lot sooner than it came to me, where she's like, listen, I think we need to change the pricing.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, we just need people. We need, we need more clients. And because I think when you're running a business, you go into kind of a panic that you're not going to have enough business to keep people
Definitely.
busy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think what my wife was saying is like, listen, people are going to bring us on because we have a very special set of skills.
Yeah.
And so let's match our pricing to that skill set.
And now you have a great track record.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, so you haven't had a single one that you failed when it comes to rescues.
No.
Has there been any that you've thought, hey, maybe we might not be able to complete this? Like, has there ever been doubt?
You know, there's some engagements where we just know it's probably not a good fit for us. And
But you can tell that early on.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
That's
I think
good.
when we get into an engagement and we can like sense the culture, like they're not going to change, and this might not be a good fit for us.
Yeah.
But once we're fully in, typically they go pretty well, especially once they start to trust our team.
Yeah, as an engineer myself, there's been instances where I've always thought I can figure stuff out given enough time, but I've also thought, I don't know if I'm gonna figure this out by the time I need to. And that doubt has definitely crept in before, and it adds a little stress. So
Yeah.
that's good that you've been able to see that at an early stage, I should say.
Well, I think that's, for the other question that you had, I think that's probably the big lessons learned for us was the pricing.
Yeah.
We were trying to price to a point where we thought it was a good, healthy, respectable, we're going to get business in the door. But when you're working a ton of hours and that rate is so low that now it's not justifying all the consulting efforts you're doing, it helps you realize, we got to reset on this a bit.
Nice. So where do you think that you learned a lot of your leadership traits before you jumped into, I'm sure as you started your business, you've learned a lot along the way, but beforehand, were there any mentors that maybe you tried to model yourself after?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm lucky that I've had a lot of great guys in my life.
Awesome.
Growing up, I had a great mentor.
Who was that?
Lance Rubringer now he's a pastor out in Michigan.
Nice.
And he used to be a cop. So I think it's awesome. It's like, okay, and it's funny because even now, I mean, I'm in my 50s, and when I talk to him, I'm still like, I have a healthy intimidation of him, right? Because it's still like, this is Lance. Like when I was a teenager, like he was a tough dude, you know, but he gave me really good sound advice that's carried all through life, and
that's so cool.
Helped me keep I used to have a lot of anger problems when I was a teenager, and he helped me learn how to balance that. And then just through business, being able to have some great like C-level folks who I've been able to lean in on. And probably one of the biggest lessons learned is just, there's nothing wrong with being the quietest guy in the room. Sometimes that's okay. And just listening to all the chatter happening when you're walking into a situation, because what happens is when you do speak, everyone wants to hear what you have to say, and it's just taking in like, everyone is so angry right now. Let's kind of hear their chatter, and then let's jump in and see if we can make this thing make sense.
So you met that mentor at a young age as a teenager?
Yeah.
That's really cool that you had that. How did you meet him through? I guess you said he was a pastor through the church, or
he wasn't a pastor then. He was still a cop back then.
Nice.
Yeah, and then he and I just connected, and we just hung out all the time.
Yeah.
And this is back in the day. I mean, it sounds like so old, but I guess I am. I mean, when you had back then, when you wanted to buy software, like we had to go from Chicago up to Michigan, you know, because like there was the only one Egghead store, you know, and I think it was Egghead Studio or something like that, you know. So we had to go from Illinois up to Michigan. He'd call and say, "Hey, you want to take a ride?" And I'm like, "Sure." And
you buy some software.
Yeah, exactly. We're buying some software, and it's funny because back then if you're going to load up software into a Commodore 64, you know, it's like 64 diskettes, you know, so you're just sitting there, you're waiting, you know, the next diskette. I mean, and we would just hang out and do stuff like that.
Nice.
But a lot of it was, when I think back on it, that drive up to Michigan would be a 3-hour discussion about stuff.
That's at a young age like that.
Yeah.
It's such a like formational age. That's so awesome.
Yeah, yeah, I don't even know what to say about Lance. He's definitely like a second dad. And he's when a couple of my kids got to meet him, and they were just it was funny after they met him. My third oldest got a chance to meet him, and she's like, "You guys are so much the same. Like, it's weird." She's like, "You talk the same. You have the same mannerisms." And I'm like, and it's crazy because I haven't seen him in forever, but that's still like, it's part of that DNA where it's like, I still have my hand motions like him, and I guess I do some like facial things that he does. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool.
Nice. What legacy are you hoping to leave here in the upstate? You have the scholarship funds. You're obviously making an impact here.
Well, I mean, I think especially through Hispanic Alliance, I hope that the legacy we leave is that we're supporting a whole new generation of young Latin kids who are just trying to change the direction of the life that they have. You know, they're just trying to make things better, you know, and it's difficult. I mean, this is one of those conversations where I think, especially in light of kind of the culture that we're in right now, these are tough conversations when we're talking about immigrants and Latin Americans and all the conversations.
It's loaded.
It's very loaded. But it's something that my wife and I are convicted about, and we're unapologetic about it. And we're saying, these are good families. And these kids are the product of mom and dads who are just saying, we're just trying to get the American dream, and we want our kids to feel that, and we feel like our scholarship helps springboard them to be able to do that.
What advice would you give to some of these kids, especially in the Hispanic heritage?
You know, I think there's been a conversation my wife and I have had of like what we could do to even speak better into that, because I think part of what is not really well communicated into some, especially families from Latin America, is when you start school is, man, the debt. And that's the big one that I would love to, and Hispanic Alliance and I have talked a bit about that. Like, what could we do to just educate? You know, I don't want to see these kids coming out with 90 grand in debt, but that's the reality, because sometimes you just don't know better. And I think the education would be a big piece of that. And for me, just knowing that we can educate, we've got a scholarship, and just continuing to maybe inspire other minority-owned businesses that they're just trying to start something and see where they can go with it. And that's something that my wife are pretty convicted about.
Nice. That's cool. That's good for you guys. Let's, whenever you started your company, obviously 6 years ago, what advice would you give to that version of you, knowing 6 years has gone by and the lessons you've learned?
Oh man, if Elaine and I are sitting back with us back then, that Elaine would be telling past Elaine, please get your husband to raise his prices. Like she'd just be reinforcing like, yes, your pricing needs to go up. But I think part of it would be probably tapping into our network much sooner. I think when you start a business, man, you're just trying to survive.
Yeah.
And you're hoping you continue to get in more business. But when it's just a two-person shop, it's just my wife and I, and we're trying to struggle like with questions of, when do we hire somebody? Like, do we have enough work to hire? Like, we've got to pay somebody, even if the work is like, you have all these things that you really reflect on, and it's agonizing because we've got employees, and if I don't get new work,
It's livelihoods.
yeah. So those are all things that we're just talking about, back then, and trying to figure things out. But what we're doing is, I think if we could go back in time, is just say, it's okay, take it slow, but here are the resources you should be reaching out to and to help you along, because there's some great resources with especially the chamber, and they can connect you in with great coaches, and we think the world of those guys.
Nice. Well, we'll end it here. I think we're getting close to time, but what is the one thing you hope listeners take out of your story today?
Well, I hope that you guys, if there's anyone who's listening that's maybe even looking at starting a business, like, do it. Be brave.
Full send.
Just do it. Just be brave. Reach out to some free resources that like the chamber has.
Yeah.
Start looking at mentorships, because there are. All you have to do is ask. I think that's the fear as small business owners we have, is like, no one's going to want to mentor us. You'd be surprised how many people you can go up to, business leaders, and just say, I'm just starting a small business. Could we have coffee sometime?
Yeah.
Just be brave. And I think for our business is just, we do project rescues, we do CIO advisory, and if there's a need out there, we'd love to be able to chat with somebody about it.
Well, Guillermo, thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
That was awesome.